What's up, gamers? Have you seen the TrimUI Brick Hammer? This awesomely designed all-metal chassis retro handheld that's like if Apple designed a retro handheld, this is what it would feel like. I can't wait to tell you about it. Let's get into it. Now, the Brick Hammer was sent over to me by Lit NXT for a review today, and they are a third-party website that goes ahead and pre-configures the SD card for you so that all the emulators are set up and ready to go, and you can start playing right out of the box. And I'll have affiliate links to their site in the description below, but just so you know, no money exchanged hands and all my thoughts are my own. This did ship in this hard shell case with a nice soft interior and an elastic strap to keep this secure inside, and a little pocket for your charging cable and whatever else you need to store in the case. But I know what you're really here for is the device itself, and this is it. I mean, it is super shiny. It feels really high quality. The metal seems to be precision cut just at every angle, at every turn. It all fits together perfectly. And because of that all metal chassis and that heft, when you pick this up, you realize this really isn't a handheld for a child. It just feels so high quality. It's just honestly one of the classiest handhelds that I've ever experienced. Now, a while back, I did review the original TrimUI Brick, which has a plastic design. At the time, I thought the same thing about it, that it was just a very classy device. In fact, in my thumbnail for this review, I put a little top hat on it because it was so classy. And this device is still one of my absolute favorites. I love taking this on trips with me and playing it on the go. And the Brick Hammer has the same internal specs, the same screen. They just took the class to a whole nother level with this all-metal design. This thing performs excellently, and I cannot still to this day get over how gorgeous the display is. I mean, look at the colors on that. Just absolutely fantastic. The blues, the reds, the greens, they're just all so vibrant and sharp. And this is a sharp display. And speaking of the display, let's just go ahead and talk about that and go over some specs. The TrimUI Brick Hammer has a 3.2-inch 1024 by 768 pixel IPS fully laminated display. It runs the Allwinner A133P CPU and the Imagination PowerVR GE8300 GPU. It has 1 GB of LPDDR4X RAM, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in, stereo speakers, which I'll note is unique for a vertical handheld, RGB lighting on the front and the back. It supports well over 20 emulators, and it has a 3000 mAh battery for 5 hours of battery life. It also has some bonus function keys and a function switch, which you can customize in several different ways, plus a 3.5mm headphone jack and mono microphone. It has an external TF card slot, it runs on Linux, and it comes in rose gold, fluorescent green, and gunmetal gray, which you see here. So all of those specs mean that things like CPS3 or the Sega Dreamcast, some N64, even the PSP and Sega Saturn are going to have pretty decent performance. But let's talk about how the buttons feel. The buttons have a nice, subtle, very tactile click to them, and I consider myself somewhat sensitive to clackety buttons, but these actually don't bother me. It's just a very satisfying click. It lets you know, yeah, I pushed that button. And they're very responsive. They're all slightly smaller than the buttons on something like the RG35XX. And you can see there that the D-pad is smaller. The face buttons are a little smaller as well. The device as a whole, I mean, is smaller, but that just means it's a little more compact and easier to carry around, to put in your pocket and to take on the go. And while everyone's eyes are different, and I understand that, I have found that the 3.2-inch display on the TrimUI Brick Hammer and TrimUI Brick really hit the sweet spot for me in terms of pocketability and visibility, especially since this 3.2-inch display does have that higher pixel density. It just makes everything look so good. Be free, little birds and beasts. To stop and save a game, you hit the TrimUI button here on the bottom left, and you can select save or load or net play, or go to the advanced menu, which takes you into RetroArch, and you can scroll through the options there, and then you can exit your game from that menu as well. And speaking of loading, I found that load times and the exit times are all very short. For example, here's something on the Sega Genesis, and look how quickly it loads right to that start screen. I mean, that's just no time at all. Or how about the Game Boy Advance? Boom. You're in that quick. Of course, when you load these games after you've already played them, it will load in to your last save right where you left off. And that's all pre-configured for you right out of the box from Lit NXT. But even a game with a bigger file size, like the PSP, is going to take a little longer to load. But you're going to see here just how quick that is. I mean, within seconds, these emulators are up and running thanks to this Allwinner A133P processor. And then playing a game on the PSP, you can see the FPS up there in the right corner. This is Ridge Racer, and we're pushing over 50 FPS, sometimes 60 FPS on this little handheld. And there are some dips here and there, but you still get a very playable experience, even on PSP, and look how gorgeous, whoa, those graphics are on this screen. Even this 16:9 content really pops, and this device is small enough to fit in just about anyone's pocket, whether you're a full-grown adult or even a little kid. Well, I'm a little rusty on my Ridge Racer, so I definitely didn't win that one, but I really just wanted to show off that performance and let you see just how playable the PSP can be, even in this form factor. Now, one of the really interesting things about the TrimUI Brick is that it does have this function switch on the side. And I did want to show that off really quick in this review. When you go into the function key settings menu, you'll see over here which button is currently selected. The left function key is selected right now, and you can see that it is set to change the D-pad from a D-pad to a joystick, or from the joystick to a D-pad. So that toggles back and forth when you press this in certain emulators. And that's great for emulators like the PSP, where sometimes you might need the joystick and other times you might need the D-pad, or the N64, or even the Dreamcast. And instead of having to go into the emulator settings and figure all of that out, they've created a shortcut with these function keys, and it's absolutely fantastic. To scroll through those function keys, you hit the minus button down here. This one is currently set to nothing, but you see the options we have for the CPU clock switcher, or the LCD brightness switcher, or LED on and off toggle. So you can turn these lights that are on the device here on and off if you wanted to set that to that key. And then finally we have the switch, which is on the side here. And for the switch, you get quite a few other options. You can turn the LEDs off, you can go into quiet mode, silent mode, the CPU power save or CPU performance mode. So for power save, it's going to draw less power, it's going to lower those clock speeds, which is going to increase your battery life. But in performance mode, you're going to be able to run higher end games like Ridge Racer on the PSP. And the reason that this is such an interesting feature, the fact that you can toggle these on and off with this switch on the side, means that if you're playing something like the NES or the Super NES, you can go into a lower power state and save some battery life, and then turn on the performance mode when you need it. And that's simply a feature that most other handhelds do not have. But you also have options for turning any of your buttons into a turbo button at the flick of a switch, literally. The one thing I wish they had in this UI for these settings was an explanation for these things that just kind of gave you an idea of what each of them do. I think silent mode just turns off the volume, but a short explanation I think would be helpful to a lot of people. You get a lot of other apps built in here too, like you can do Moonlight streaming on this handheld if you wanted to from your CPU. It also has a media player. You can change the boot logo. It has over-the-air updates, which is awesome. You can have it pick a random game for you to play. There's an ebook reader, and a lot of people really love Portmaster, and so I'm sure that you're glad to see Portmaster included here as well. There's a scraper tool. You can screen record, and if you go into the System Tools app, you're going to find all kinds of things that you can tinker with. With the UI, one confusing thing that I want to point out is that when you're down here scrolling, the top bars completely go away. And some people forget that they're there and can't find them again. So it does go, you do have to go all the way to the top, and it has favorites, recent, bests, games, apps, and then you keep going and you have net play and settings. And under settings, of course, you're going to find quite a few settings, including a fan favorite, themes. And there's quite a few on here to choose from. You can also scroll through that top menu by hitting R or L, and you can do that even if you're not at the top. You can scroll through them with that menu hidden. I always like to give everyone a listen to the speakers when we test these things out, so here you go. I love that we got stereo speakers on a vertical handheld, but I do have to say that the TrimUI Brick and the Brick Hammer, the speakers are pretty tinny. There's a lot of treble and not really much low end, but that makes sense because these speakers are so small. Since they put 2 in here, they just can't handle a lot of bass. But for the games that do have some bass in them, you always have the option of using the 3.5mm headphone jack there on the bottom. And noticing the RGBs coming through these holes on the bottom there does remind me that I wanted to say that these are dimmable. This is actually set on like 4 or maybe 5 out of 10 brightness levels right now, so they do get quite a bit brighter if that's what you want. They also change color, which I think is cool, that they have multiple colors set up. And I like the best tab where it changes colors based on the collection that you've selected. Mario is red and Sonic is blue, Ninja Turtles are green. So the TrimUI Brick Hammer has excellent performance, just like the original TrimUI Brick, an absolutely breathtaking display, really satisfying, low-profile, clicky buttons that aren't too loud, even the triggers, which do rattle just a little bit, by the way, but still really satisfying to push. Some unique features that set it apart from other handhelds, like that function switch and these function buttons on the front, and this all-metal design that seriously could have been built by Apple themselves. I think it's absolutely fantastic, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and I'll catch you on the flippity flip.